Hello and welcome. Episode 98 of the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. Welcome again to today's co-host, Brian. Hey, Brian.
Hey Dan, how's it going?
Doing all right. How are you?
Pretty good. It's a pretty
I
awesome
am,
race.
fresh off of a sellout crowd, second in a row for IndyCar, Barber Motorsports Park. I will tell you, I was looking forward to going to this because I had such a good time last year at Road America. I was looking forward to this because I wanted to see what it was like. Lee Diffie always talks about the Augusta on the schedule, on the IndyCar schedule. Let me tell you, it is. I have been fortunate. I've been to Augusta one time, and the grounds and how beautiful it is. It's amazing. This is like nothing else. I mean, it's not Augusta, but it on the IndyCar schedule, it sure is.
Mhm.
Um, just amazing how well it's kept and how beautiful the grounds are and how rolling it is and just an amazing thing. And I'm surprised it was only 80,000 people in there, but it
Yeah,
was
so what is considered a sellout there? I was wondering because on TV it does not look full
sold
because
out,
it
right?
seems
Because
like
it's so
there's
big.
endless
Yeah,
amounts of area for people.
right. That's a good point. I don't to me, I look at it from a very selfish point of view, right? Like, hey, there's some more spots here where you could put people and you
Yeah.
could probably, add some more people. But I think to continue and carry over the luster of how beautiful this park is and how beautiful the trackside is, I don't think you could really put more people. Where we were sitting in there, and you could certainly put more people, but we were spread out enough and kind of between rows, so to speak, between the people sitting in front of us and the people sitting behind us
Hmm.
on these berms. It was very well spread out. Again, right? They called it a sellout. Could you put 20 or 30,000 more people in there? Probably. I
Yeah.
don't think it would be that big a deal, but I think after a while it becomes like, that F1 experience. I had one experience with F1 at Coda where you're sitting on top of each other. I mean, you
Yeah.
you have no room to move at all because they pack so many people in there. But you know, it was it was beautiful. They did call it a sellout. We also had a chance to visit the museum, which
Hmm.
was kind of cool. Primarily motorcycles, which is really not my game, but
Hmm.
it was uh, the amount of bikes and old cars and everything that they have in this place is just amazing. I
Hmm.
and so well kept and just so well restored and everything. I mean, and almost every piece has a plaque to it where it talks about how it got there, when they got it. There's an old ZR1, so I'm a car guy, right? There's an
Yeah.
old ZR1, their red one, and it's an original, and it was actually bought by the museum, brand
Uh-huh.
new. So it was bought as a museum piece to be added to the museum collection. A lot of other pieces are donated by, people, friends of Barber and all that. So it was it was pretty good. It was
Yeah.
pretty cool. And dude, there's some serious equipment out there too, like in their restoration shops and some machines, and it's a very well equipped machine shop there.
Yeah.
It looks like they could do quite a bit of work on cars and bikes. Um, I'll tell you what, any of the listeners who are on the fence about going, if you have the opportunity to go, go. Don't even debate it anymore. Don't even think about it. Just go.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience. It really was cool. So glad to be there. All right. It has been a busy stretch of news
Yeah.
uh, with IndyCar, man, to say the least, right? And I hate that we have to set Barber aside to, cover some of this news because the race was great and the news
Hmm.
is in some ways a little unfortunate. So
Yeah.
first, and I think the big thing here is the Team Penske scandal, or what were they calling it, Brian, on the broadcast?
They fell slightly outside of the rules. I
Fell
believe that's how
slightly
that like
outside of the rules.
yeah.
Um, I in putting these notes together, I was kind of hesitant to put cheat in here or cheater
Yeah.
in here. Um, I guess it's certainly one way of looking at it. Fell outside the rules is certainly another way of looking at it.
Yeah.
In any case, I mean, we've heard a lot of explanations over the past week. Joseph Newgarden, Tim Cindric, Scott McLaughlin put out a statement. He didn't really entertain it too much more. Will Power was very direct in his statement too, and he wasn't talking about it either. Of all that you heard over the last week, you buying any of it?
Like I kind of said earlier to you, I was starting to, I don't know about buy it, but I guess buy into the logic, or at least the excuse, until Newgarden spoke, and then it blew it all up, and which is it's all wild. I mean, the there's no way any of it makes any sense, and his
Nope.
his call me stupid, and like it was almost like a high school debate class that he's taken, and
Yeah.
he's identified like, okay, these are the things people are going to say about me, so I'm going to talk about those things first. I'm going to bring them up. People are going to call me names, and I'm okay with that, but don't call me a liar. And then the fake
Right.
tears, and the whole thing was, it was so over the top. But no, obviously doesn't make any sense if, when he even talk, I mean, when he talks about the fact that he didn't just say that he thought that he could use push to pass. He said that the team, the number two
The
car.
number two team. Yeah.
So who's the number two team? Are we talking Cindric? Is it everybody? Is it
That's how I
everybody
read
from
it.
crew chief to engineer? Like, how does the strategist not know? How are they not on board with the push to pass philosophy and understanding of the rules? Like, that's who would tell Joseph Newgarden that. He's not making that up on his own. Somebody on his team is going to
Yeah.
tell him those things. And maybe he is right in a little bit that, like, I don't know, we pretend like these um everybody associated with this sport maybe are super intelligent, and maybe they're not.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
some of these people aren't super bright, but you got to think that strategists and engineers are pretty bright and know the rules. And like, I mean, I was blown away at thermal when it seemed like a lot of drivers there didn't know the kind of arrangement of the races. They didn't know the
Yep.
payouts, and like, I knew all that stuff because I read that stuff all week, right? And I
Right.
would think that at some point they would have a bunch of meetings to know, here's what it is. So when, like, they were sort of revealing that they didn't really know the race, sort of layout, I was like, wow, this is pretty remarkable that they don't know that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. So
I was incredibly nervous about Joseph's press conference, right? He didn't
yeah.
want to just put out a statement. He wanted to talk. And I mean, kudos for him. Did he kind of admit to wrongdoing? No.
He
He,
pretended like he was.
right. He admitted to using it, right?
Yeah.
But he admitted to using it and then saying he didn't he didn't know that he couldn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
To your point. And so everybody on the two obviously was oblivious. That's what we're supposed to believe. Everybody on the
Mm-hmm.
two for Team Penske is oblivious to its use, and those that might have known that he was using it didn't know that he couldn't use it. Like maybe it was a rule
He
change or
made it
whatever.
sound like they were planning on using it again in Long Beach. That was their plan. They knew
Yeah,
that was the strategy. But then, so why the statements from the day or two before about the fact that it was an accident?
right.
And as Joseph said to Ferrucci when he spelled his name wrong, where he said, "Here
Yeah,
at Penske,
details matter
details
at Penske.
matter," right?
Yep,
Yeah. So,
exactly right. Yeah,
so
yep,
there's no
exactly.
way. I mean, just in anything, like if you're doing something important with any kind of piece of technology, like your phone, you're restarting, you're reloading the operating system. Like, you
Right.
don't. Nobody just like, that's one of the most important things. I can't believe that's something that someone copies and pastes over,
Yeah,
doesn't pay any attention to. And yeah, the different stories make it seem to me like he's full on cheat. I
yeah,
don't, I
yeah.
don't, I don't, I don't see any other way around that. I mean, I was like, it's a big topic of conversation around my house with my kids, and and my wife. She's interested in the story, but she doesn't like follow
Right,
IndyCar that intently. But she kind of is forced to because it's on, and
right.
she goes to Long Beach and stuff, and she's kind of part of that stuff. But she's like, her first statement was, "But the driver pushes the button, right? Like the team doesn't do it." I was like,
Right.
"No, the driver." So she's like, "So isn't it his fault?" It's like, yeah, this was before Joseph even spoke. So he did sort of take blame for it, but I don't see any way around that
Right.
situation. And with his contract supposedly talks taking place, like if I was, I found it interesting. Scott McLaughlin, his statement talked about how he stands with his team.
Yep.
I don't think Will Power really said anything about that, but
No, Will Power just said he didn't use it.
yeah, if I'm
But
if I'm
we got
innocent
docked, and I understand, and we're going
and
to move
I
on, right?
yeah, if I didn't mean to cheat and it wasn't my fault and my team messed that up for me, that's not like a Graham Rahal pissed about a miscommunication or a wheel nut
Right.
or something. This is a pretty big oversight that now is labeling you perhaps as a cheater forever. Like Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, maybe this disappears in a week, but maybe this goes on for the next 40 years. It's something that people are going to talk about.
God, I
It's
hope
going to
not.
be the
Right.
asterisk next to Newgarden's name. I'd be like, I'm out of here. I'm going to Ganassi or
Right.
wherever because I can't have this. I'd want to
Right.
show everybody I'm not happy with my team, but
Right.
they both seem to be totally okay with it. Like
Right.
they just go out and go racing.
I know, and that was what I was hoping he didn't do. I don't think he went full on like belligerence about it. Which I'm glad, but he wasn't. To me, they were like, oh, he was emotional. There was a couple of times where maybe he blinked back some tears and whatever, and that's fine. But do I think he was appropriately contrite? No, because and here's why I say that. I don't buy it. You're not buying it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like most of the drivers in that paddock aren't buying it either.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and you can go to Twitter and you can look him up. Brian or Colton Herta wasn't buying it, and he was
Yeah.
very vocal about it. Right. There's a bunch of other people out there on and off the record. They weren't buying it.
Mm-hmm.
They were especially not buying the excuse. Roger Penske having to get involved and have a very quick impromptu meeting with the other team owners as both the owner of Team Penske and the owner of the IndyCar series, and have this meeting with these guys. And there was very little information that came out of there, but everybody to a T, it felt like, was admitting about how embarrassed Roger Penske was by this. So I don't buy it, Joseph, not even a little. I don't really know that anybody does, and I don't know that I ever will. Here's the thing, though. I've been texting people. I expect Tim Cindric to lose the job.
Yeah.
Right? I expect him to lose his job. Roger Penske is incredibly embarrassed by this. And think about it. At the highest level, okay, he's the owner of the team. Roger Penske is. He owns the team, he owns the series, and he's the co-owner of the engine builder, right? Zoom in a little bit closer. He is the head of this odd proceeding trying to set up a charter system, he being Roger Penske, right? One that, we had a thing where, oh, we want you $1 million buy-in, and then, oh, maybe we'll give you some guaranteed spots at the 500. That's all been kind of a crazy thing, right? He has to convince these people now, right? I'm not a cheater. My team is not cheaters. And oh, by the way, I need you to buy into this series because we're trying to build something great here. But let's go a little bit further. This is the guy whose name, Roger Penske, Team Penske, is on a loss, right? Or is a disqualification, another one, in the IMSA series with the Porsche. They had too much wear, car running too low. They ran to follow the rule. Joey Logano's webbed glove situation, right?
Yeah,
Trying to
I
change
love
the
that one.
aerodynamics of this right car in qualifying. And now this. And here's the thing. I would argue that all of this means something to Penske. All of this means something to Penske. But this IndyCar situation means the most.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I've like I said, I've texted several people. I've heard a lot of it, and we're going to go through a little bit of this, but just at its core, why not dismiss Tim Cindric, right?
I don't know. Like, I'm a little conflicted. Not really actually conflicted. I can get into it later in more detail. The whole like just cheating thing, you brought up Logano, which is like, I have this nostalgia for old school cheating in motorsports, like
So do I.
in a creative way that actually doesn't break rules, like all those stories about like
Gray
freezing
area.
gas to get more fuel in, like finding places that there isn't a rule yet written for it.
Right.
And like, especially in the like, or if something's just silly, like a web glove to me is just
Yeah.
hilarious. And
Right.
you're trying to get caught at that point. This isn't like 1940 without like cameras
Right. Right.
and you know, you're being like live streamed to every other team too doing that. So like that stuff to me is like silly. On the Penske side of it, like
Okay. So
I
hold
don't
on a
know
minute.
if you
Can I stop you
yeah.
right there?
Uh-huh.
So one of the things that Tim Cindric said over the week was, why would we do something that we could so obviously and so easily
Right.
get caught doing?
Yeah, it's a good
Right.
point. Yeah.
Where in my
But they did
mind,
it in NASCAR, yeah.
why wouldn't you? Yeah. And you
Yeah.
did it in NASCAR, by the way. But why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Because that'd be your first excuse. Dude, it was hiding in plain sight. I wasn't really trying
Yeah.
to do anything nefarious. It was all right there. All the teams
Yeah.
have access to the data. Chevy engineers got access to the data. Whole team of engineers with Team Penske gear on got access to the
Yeah.
data. Why would we cheat something? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Who's going to call you out? Right?
Correct. Yeah. So I don't know if you pay any attention to the stock market, and I'm not a financial analyst, but Penske Automotive Group,
Mm-hmm.
their stock has been rising the past few months pretty steadily. And last Wednesday had a big drop for one day, and the next day
That's funny.
straight back up, straight back up again. I think that's his baby more than anything. That's at
Oh, cash.
$155 a share or whatever now. So
Mm-hmm. Sure.
that company is probably a bigger deal perhaps to him because that's probably what affords him, or that is what affords him the speedway. So not the series, and he's in a position with the other teams like he could almost come out and pull like a Jack Nicholson thing and just be like, "Yeah, I cheated. What are you going to do about it?" Kind of
Right.
thing. I don't know, but I feel like if it's not Cindric, does it have to be to say that we did it? I'm the one that told Joseph he could do it.
Right.
Like someone's got to fall on the sword. It's not going to be Roger, obviously,
Right.
and to be honest, I think that losing Tim Cindric, like Marshall Pruitt talked about it last week, that would like change the team fundamentally and forever. And okay, so what if it does? And maybe now they're not cheats anymore, or would that even matter? I mean,
No.
I'm sure there's lots of people there that could do a
Yeah.
decent job of running that team, and
Yeah. That's
I think
so.
they'd be fine.
I think Roger Penske is a ruthless competitor, has been since day one, not only in IndyCar, but in any series he's ever competed in any business that he's ever competed in. And I would believe that he believes that he has teams of people who have bought into the Penske way, who, yeah, hey, Tim, we appreciate everything you've done. And you've taken it here, but this is unforgivable. We're going to plug in Ron Rajewski, right? We're going to plug in somebody, right? Bud Danker. We're going to plug in somebody to do this, right? And we're going to put people in charge of the NASCAR program, the IMSA program, the IndyCar program. But Bud Danker is going to be the president of Team Penske, and I'm just making it up.
Yeah.
Because I think that you can do that, right? So a couple of things that people have said back to me and I'm fine with, right? Is you can't do this so close to the 500.
No, who cares about that?
Who cares, right? Because again,
yeah,
you have
if
plenty
anything,
capable of
it's more
people,
important.
right? You got plenty of capable people who could stand up atop that box. Look, Tim Cindric only does strategy for one team, right? And they were the team that completely crapped themselves last year at the end of the season. Bad luck, whatever, blah, 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 you want to say. They won more races than anybody. They finished 5th in the championship, right? So spare me on that one. He's the strategist for Newgarden. You don't want to upset Newgarden. It's a contract year. See ya, dude, right?
Yeah.
Roger Penske is the guy who let Elio Castroneves go. Roger Penske is the guy that let Simon Pagenaud go.
Yeah.
Right? So I believe that Penske is ruthless enough to believe either you buy in and you'll be a winner here, right? Because we're still the team to beat. And he said it, and he has a quote for that this week. We're still the team to beat. And if you don't want to be here and you want to go somewhere else, you want to go to McLaren, who's spraying money all over the place and buying contracts and overpaying Pato Award and all this other stuff, they're not winning anything.
Yeah.
right? Look how bad they did at Barber. I mean, completely lost at Barber. They got this gigantic trailer that they come wheeling up in there with all this grand technology, and it's done absolutely nothing for them,
Yeah.
right? They bad pit stop with Rossi. We'll talk about that, but you know, I guess we'll see what happens. But this,
The
I believe,
500 is an
is
interesting point, though,
go ahead.
because if Cindric makes it past the 500, I think he's there to stay. Like, to me, if you're going to fire
Totally
him, you
agree.
got to do it before the 500. And it's not like they
You got to
need
do it
him for
this
the
week.
500. Whatever work has been done for the 500
It's
has
done.
been done over the last year. Like, it's not like they need him there, boots on the ground,
Nope.
like putting together a gearbox or something. So,
Yep.
yeah, like
But I
that.
believe this is what the other owners were saying when they said Roger has to get his house in order.
Yeah.
I believe that's what this is. It's kind of that cleaning house type of thing. Like, okay, well, you don't want to point the blame somewhere. Tim, nobody's buying the fact that you didn't know that this was going on. Tim, nobody's buying the fact that you didn't realize it was run afoul of the rule. If that's the truth that you want me to buy, then you're completely incapable anymore of running this team, right? Because you've lost sight of the details. And at Penske, details matter.
Yeah. So you think he brings in Mike Hall, maybe?
No, I think he just plugs somebody in. I think he plugs in somebody from the organization. Penske's
But that's
extremely
somebody
loyal
that's
to
part
people
of
like
the.
that. Yeah,
If
he's
Tim
loyal until
Cindric,
he's not.
if Tim Cindric was the cheat, right, and he's the guy that creates this culture essentially there on a daily basis, then theoretically anybody underneath him might have the same philosophy about what it takes to win a race. So it really shouldn't be anybody from in-house. It should be somebody respected from out of house.
Yeah, yes and no. That's why, like I say, Bud Denker. Bud Denker's an executive with Penske
Yeah, he's
Corporation.
not
He
really
runs
connected to
the
the
Grand
race
Prix,
team,
right?
right? Yeah.
Right. So he would be somebody that Roger could respect and sort of trust. Roger's son, I think Greg Penske is very involved with the series. Maybe Greg Penske gets involved with the race team and not so much with the series, because he'll certainly trust his son Greg, especially with this whole thing. But it'd be interesting. I agree with you though. If it doesn't happen this week, it ain't gonna happen, and it just ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think this is it. So it's got to. I expected it today, but again,
right. But like it. So if this
maybe
happened
that's
at
just how I am.
Ganassi, Paul would be gone day one, right?
I think so.
I feel like, yeah, I think
He fired
so too.
Kyle Larson, right?
Yeah.
A once in a lifetime talent and he did it for the right reasons, right? He fired, Kyle Larson. Chip Ganassi did, without question. This hey, dude, what you did was egregious. It's indefensible. You gotta go. See you, dude.
Yeah.
You think you wanted to do that and then turn around and watch it? Chip's sold his team, but you do what you have to do to make a statement, and this is to me the only statement that Roger Penske can make that hey, we're serious about cleaning house here. Starts at the top, and he's gone.
So in the paddock, what was it like around the Penske trailers? Was it like a ghost town or same as usual business?
It was odd. So we didn't see any Penske driver. We actually didn't see a lot of drivers. We saw Pato Award. Romain Grosjean was holding court, a million people standing around him. It was the funniest thing. And I really didn't see many drivers. We were through there a couple of times too. Didn't see a lot of drivers at all. It was a weird vibe though. You could tell that it was a very weird vibe out there with people, and and you could pick up from some of the things that Marshall Pruitt was tweeting and what Jenna Fryer was tweeting, Nathan Brown's reporting, which was fantastic. But you could tell it was a weird vibe. It was just a weird vibe all around, that it was just an odd thing. So yeah, it was just weird. And it was in the air. It was in the air everywhere. You can hear people talking about it. You can see people talking about it. But I don't know, we'll see what happens. No great segue for this, but we're talking about terminations and everything, and then unfortunately, right, carrying on our unfortunate news before we get into this race. What I have expected for at least a week David Malukas has been terminated by Arrow McLaren as the driver of the number 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why I say I've been expecting this is because there's been a lot of stories about all of the great things that Arrow McLaren is doing to help support David and helping him with his physio, his medical.
Those are weird articles. Tony Kanaan driving him to the doctor and giving him his personal sim and stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Like,
we cried together and all
he
this.
can't get his own ride to the doctors, and it's his left hand, right? Like, he can still drive with one hand to the doctor. He's got a family or Uber or whatever. Like, why is Tony Kanaan? And then, like, McLaren can't get their own driver's sims. It has to come from Tony Kanaan's basement. Like, it has to be his personal one. Like, come on.
Yeah.
The whole thing was so weird.
It is so weird. But and I say this because if you think back at the history of this, and that team doesn't have the best of like track record with how
we just talked about it last week. Yeah.
Right. With how they handle. Yes, we did. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So it's like, so they had to put out this like full court press about all of the great things, and they're going over and above to try to help David get back in the car. And this morning it's, hey, he had a trigger in his contract that says he missed 4 races. Yeah, he's gone. Right. Which, here's the thing. Okay, I think our listeners are going to think I'm completely ruthless. I am not. At least I don't think I am. I understand it. 4 races in a row. It's very unexpected. We don't know if he's capable. Obviously, he's not capable for Indy GP, right? Because if he were, or if they thought that he was, why fire him now? Not capable for Indy 500. I think if they thought he was, right? If he won more race, big deal. We're good. We're good to go rest of the season. I think this unknown is still out there, and I think when you're running a multi-million-dollar organization, if you're looking at, $6 to $10 million in investment per car, right? $30 million plus the fourth one off and everything else, you got to know who's going to be in that number 6. You got to know from week to week who's going to be in that number 6. And if the guy that you hired can't be in there, then, hey, dude, we tried. We did everything we possibly can, but we have to put something in there for our partners. And we have to start moving on, right?
Yeah.
For the future
Isn't
of the
there
organization.
a scenario, though, especially because seemingly the 2 drivers that they're going to use, neither one of them can do it full time.
Yeah, it blows the consistency thing out of the water. But
so why not keep him around? If supposedly you believed in him and you thought he was going to be great, he still could be. There's no reason to keep him around. So maybe it's not the GP, and maybe it's not the 500, and maybe it's not until 2 or 3 races to go at the end of the year, but then at least you've got him to try him out, see how he does, and then you can make a decision then, and you could probably keep him. If they had a clause to be able to can him after 4 races, then they probably could keep him around for almost nothing, and they just don't want him picking. And at this point, he's already picked up whatever little like institutional secrets and things that he could take then to some other team. Like, that's already happened. But
I think that it's too much. It's just too much, unknown for them. I think David would have to agree to renegotiate his contract and keep him around for nothing. They owe him what they owe him, right? If he's a paid driver until you terminate him, and even then, it's you owe him what you owe him until that point. But I think there's just too much unknown, and I think even with saying, well, we're going to use Porsche and we're going to use ILOT through the balance of the year, and we think we can make that work, I think that's less than ideal. But it really does gives McLaren an opportunity to look at who they feel that they could put in that car for next year. My firm belief is they wanted Kellen Ilott for that car anyway, right? When Palou turned his back on the team, which now in hindsight, you almost kind of feel like that was probably not a bad idea.
Yeah, for sure.
But when he turned his back on the team, they had to put somebody in there. And I think they wanted Ilott. Ilott was unavailable. They signed Malukas, and then suddenly Ilott's available. Right. Yeah. And then there's no room at the end because they're just not prepared to expand to 4 cars right now. I think the 4-car thing for Indy is going to be is a little bit of a stretch. But I think that means that ILOT really is sort of the, the lead domino maybe for 2025. But Pourchaire, if he continues to show well and whatever else, then maybe he's the 4th car, and it gives McLaren an opportunity to hit the ground running in 25. It's been ugly for them. You don't know where they're going to go. I think Rossi's in a contract year. Pato Award's not. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Rossi. They got to figure out what they're going to do with this number 6. And, they got work to do now. They got a lot of work to do now. So, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just, it's funny. I'm so worn out of cheating and is he coming back, cheating. And then the Malukas thing, is he coming back and anything else, but I don't know what you do. So let me take it back. So you mentioned, what do we do? What do we put in here? One of the names that somebody floated to me earlier today was Connor Daly.
Yeah,
I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. You don't think so?
No, I mean,
me neither. I think it's extraordinarily.
All this being said, I really like Connor Daly. I love his podcast. I've been a fan of his since kind of the beginning of him when he was on Amazing Race with Rossi, and I've always been a Connor Daly fan. I always root for him. I felt bad for him a couple times over the years, but I think he's a step up from Jack Harvey, which we can get into. But
knock it off.
But I think that Connor Daly would do there, but they're not looking for fine. They're looking for the next big star. That's why I feel bad for Malukas, because it did feel like that 3rd car they were treating like a wild card kind of car. Like they know what they're going to get from Pato. They know what they're going to get from Rossi pretty much. This 3rd car is like a chance for us to sort of take a flyer on someone, see how it works, test some things out. Maybe they're going to be great, maybe not, but essentially we can make our money. We've got enough advertisers right now. We're doing fine. So we can take a chance on this. And that's why I kind of want them to still take a chance on Malukas essentially a little bit. But the Connor Daly thing, they know he's not going to end up being Pato.
He's not their long-term solution.
And so he's someone that, somebody like Dale Coyne or Ed Carpenter or maybe even Rahal, like they need someone to go out there and get a good 15th place finish, not mess it up, not, throw their car into a wall, and frankly not say anything stupid. Like Connor kind of speaks his mind and is honest about stuff, but at the same time, he's actually very good, I think, about not messing things up for sponsors. He's pretty politically correct actually about a lot of things. And so I think he makes sponsors happy and he makes teams happy. You can plug him in. He knows what to do. He knows how to do all of the things. It's not like bringing in Theo Pourchaire where like he literally doesn't even know how to like make a pit stop yet. You got to teach him how to do everything. Like doesn't even know how to, maybe, he doesn't even know how to turn on a car. So, Connor Daly's going to show up and he's going to know what to do. You're not going to have to tell him how to do it. Even for someone like Dreyer Reinbold, when they use him and what's his face for the 500, Ryan Hunter-Reay, they know those guys get in the car and they know what it's supposed to feel like, and they know what it's supposed to do. They know how to get around the speedway. Like that works for, like I could see them using Connor Daly maybe for the 500. I mean, wouldn't happen obviously right now, but not for like the rest of the season. That's silly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he's there. I don't know that Hildebrand, Simona Di Silvestro, any of the people on the sidelines, right? I don't see any of those being.
And all for the same reason.
McLaren.
I love J.R. Hildebrand. Love that dude. But I think someone's going to maybe think he could do well at the 500, but not for the rest of the season. So maybe I could see McLaren using him for that, but even that, I don't see.
It's a pity that all this is happening and taking away attention from what was really a great race, right? At Barber. I guess the good news is it took all the heat off of the really lousy ratings at Long Beach. last year,
Yeah.
right? Nobody ever talked about
Were
that. But
our ratings out yet for Barber?
no, Tuesday. So
Yeah.
tomorrow, yeah. But frankly, this race demonstrates Barber demonstrates what we love about IndyCar racing. I believe. I mean, there was multiple strategies happening, some very aggressive driving out there, throughout the field. Um, and I think to me, it's what makes IndyCar special. I watch Formula One. I really like IMSA. But to me, there's nothing like IndyCar. So let's talk the winning team and the number two finisher. The winner and the number two. Well, right? Looky here. Scott McLaughlin takes the win for the second year. This is also a couple of weeks after or a week after his disqualification, followed by Will Power in second place. Interesting that the team at the center of the scandal, shall we call it, maybe cheating, finishes first and second. I think it's interesting. McLaughlin, as I said, takes the win for the second year in a row. He needed this. He went into Barber with 5 points, right? He had a really bad run at Long Beach, and then with the disqualification from St. Pete, he needed to get this thing back in order. I think it was a very dominant performance, though, wouldn't you? Didn't you?
It seemed that way, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it was a bummer.
Incredibly dominant.
But, yeah, no, I mean, he did crush it, and Will try to make it seem right, like he was trying to be smart, which probably was mostly true, but it did seem like Scott had his number the whole race there.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. He didn't lead all the laps. I mean, there was a few other leaders there, but he definitely had this race in hand. Will, who was docked 10 points, but because he wasn't disqualified, he was promoted to second for St. Pete, so he effectively lost 2 points, which that whole gyration I think is interesting. So this second place for Will puts him second in the championship. A solid weekend for Will, but just a tick or two behind McLaughlin, both in qualifying and in the race. And it's funny, before we hit record on this thing, you were talking about, it feels like qualifying was so long away. It really does.
Yeah.
It feels like it was days and days and days ago versus just, one day before the race. It wasn't, Continuing along that Team Penske theme, Newgarden couldn't match his teammates over the weekend. I don't know if it was the emotional toll that, helped push his race out, but he was out there bumping and banging. That put his race in jeopardy. He finished 16th after starting 8th. I said in a podcast episode last year, and I'm certain that it was after one of the short ovals, that Joseph likes to barge his way through the field, almost kind of bully his way through the field in a lot of situations. And I think he expects people to just get out of his way. They weren't having it this week.
Yeah, nobody was.
They just weren't having it. No. Do you agree with that, though? Do you see, like, I don't want to say that he's dirty, but I mean, do you see that he just kind of barges his way in, like, hey, I'm Joseph Newgarden,
like
Team Penske.
I've said, like, I used to love Newgarden, and over the years, I've just stopped liking the way he drives a little bit, and he does sort of turn into a bully a little bit.
Yeah.
And was it last year? Was it at St. Louis or was it Texas when he was like, "Hey, it was checkers or wreckers that last like 2 turns."
It was 2 years ago when he took Texas away from McLaughlin.
Almost had, and it was like, okay, it would have been checkers or wreckers, but the wreckers would have not been just for you. It would have been for like half the field probably there too.
Yeah.
At the same time. So
exactly.
It's like, he's had this mentality. It's a little bit of like the Rossi thing where it's like, I'm faster than you. We just talked about it at Long Beach last week. Him just like shoving guys to the side where it's like, I'm faster. I'm better. I'm Team Penske. Details matter here. Better than you, Santino. I'm going past.
Right.
I don't care. And yeah, he's driven like that, I feel like, for the last few years. And maybe he's kind of earned it a little bit.
Yeah.
More so than some others. But I don't like the way he drives a whole lot anymore. So
no.
And I'm bummed about that, I guess. But
yeah. Oh, totally agree. I totally agree. You and I are both Will Power fans. Will doesn't drive like that.
No. And never really did. And Will makes some moves here and there, but they were like flashes of like, I want to get past you.
Right.
But they weren't like
bullying
he's
moves, right? Like barging
yeah,
past people. Like I'm Will Power, get out of my way, you know.
yeah.
Third place. Third place goes to a team of no surprise, with a
Yeah.
driver who is no surprise to me, Linus Lundqvist. In his
Hmm.
third points race for Ganassi, stands on the podium. It's a great finish for Linus. He even led 4 laps. I say no surprise because last episode, what did I say? Right?
Hmm.
If you're Marcus Armstrong, better be on the watch out for this kid,
And he
who's
blew it too
coming out there.
because where did Armstrong start? 6th. So
Oh,
like
I don't have my screens, dude.
he was in the position. He started 6th, and where did Linus start? Was like 19th or 20th. 19th.
Linus Lundqvist started 19th. Yep, finished
Yeah.
third. And Armstrong started 6th and finished 9th.
So it's not just like he got beat by Linus. He was
Right.
qualified ahead of him, qualified well, and
Yep.
still got outraced essentially by him, or
Sure
by
did.
that team anyway. And that team is made up of like most of the Ganassi rookies because they're on Kiffin Simpson's car. But
Right.
yeah, it's all like the new people being promoted and stuff are on that team. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, they
I will tell
outsmarted them
you.
and outraced them.
Yeah. I will tell you, Armstrong, again, look out. He seems like a nice person, nice young man. You know, smart, articulate, you know, obviously a good racer. He's been around a season though, and Linus is a
Hmm.
rookie. Here's the other thing. Linus was a hire by Ganassi.
Yeah.
Was hired by Ganassi to drive, right? Simpson brings budget. Simpson's not who we're necessarily talking about here, but he brings budget. He's the Ridgeline sponsorship. And I believe Armstrong brings some budget. I
Yeah.
believe that. Not 100% certain. Dixon and Pillow, of course, are hired and paid appropriately. Linus is hired,
Yeah.
right? He might have a few bucks, but he doesn't have a full season of funding because he'd have been at Shank. He would have been
Yeah.
at Coin. He would have been somewhere else, right? Because he was shopping,
Yeah.
you know, for rides all last season.
Hmm.
And then Chip Ganassi comes out of nowhere to hire this kid.
Yeah.
So
Ed Carpenter too.
yeah. So I'd be on the lookout. But I think Linus Lundqvist is asserting himself as the third best driver on that team.
Yeah.
Because we spent so much time talking about the Penske scandal, the Penske cheating scandal, and the Malukas firing, I want to skip ahead to a new section that I made up today. I'm calling it random drivers and teams we should talk about for one reason or another.
Uh-huh.
That's the trendy short name that I could come up with here.
Hey,
Let's talk about Arrow McLaren for a minute.
Can we pause real quick? I got to run and get a
Absolutely.
charger.
Yeah, for sure.
Does that work? All right, I'll be back.
And through the magic of Zoom,
We're
right?
back.
We take a quick pause. You don't even know about it. Anyway, so picking up here with the teams we should talk about. Arrow McLaren. Not only did they have to dismiss an incredibly popular driver, Malukas, but they couldn't get their act together on track in Barber, which just astounds me. Teal Porcher, who took perhaps more than his fair share of broadcast mentions at Long Beach, was largely anonymous. I didn't watch the NBC broadcast. I listened to the IMS radio network twice. Once live while I was there at Barber, and then once again on the plane. But Porcher, he started 20 or finished 22nd. He started 24th. He was best of the Papaya trio. Pato Award threw away, you know, an opportunity for a great finish. He started 4th. And he was overly aggressive right from the very start. It makes no sense with what he was doing. He was sharing a lot of papaya and black across the field. He was bumping and banging, which resulted in 2 penalties that nobody could recover from. He started 4th, finished 23rd.
Yeah.
Alexander Rossi started 16th, which is not great. Finished 25th, and literally the wheels came off of his race at some point, right? But he was wobbly in general before that even happened. And here's the thing. I can't wait to hear what Rossi has to say on off track with Hinch and Rossi. Want to know what was going on with that car, because that car just suddenly was slow, right? Even before the wheel came off. And then the team sent him out 15 laps behind. Go run down, I don't know what, 2 places? I can imagine he was pissed.
Yeah.
You called out the giant, and we talked about it earlier, the giant McLaren trackside support center, whatever they call this thing.
Yeah.
Last week at Long Beach. I saw it at St. Pete. It still ain't working, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to blame it all on Tony Kanaan at this point.
Whoa!
It's got to be, it's his fault. Not engineering. He's been running
the doctor with David Malukas.
It's not. Yeah, he's too busy being a taxi driver.
Yeah,
and
setting up.
He was hired as like this, sporting director. But it sounds like in the beginning he was a mentor, a coach.
Right.
He was there to sort of help guide these things and sort of be like Milton in Office Space or whatever, where he talks between the engineers and the drivers. Like he's the guy that understands what the driver's perspective is. He can now understand more of like the ownership and management side, and he could bridge all these gaps and get everybody to work together nicely. But all of these failures to me feel like I can't imagine Pato listens to a word Tony Kanaan has to say. He behaves as if he could care less, that there's some old guy there telling him how things were 30 years ago. And Rossi is Rossi. He doesn't care what somebody like Tony Kanaan has to say. So Malukas was the only one that would probably listen to Kanaan. That's probably why he was busy driving him around. But I feel like they don't have clarity on what it takes to go out and win, like as a team at all. It feels like did you see Pato's last incident with Porsche? Teddy Porkchops, which I really love that nickname. It's not one of it's not one of Townsend's horrible professor of precision type nicknames. But where he took him out on turn 5 on the last lap that just full on just took him out. Like
he full on
what's
took
he
out
doing?
Rossi last week at Long Beach.
I know. And this is
full on took out Porsche this week.
And he was trying to do the same thing at Thermal. And it's like this it's this whole he did it with Ilott, right, too, when he was like, I'm the lead driver here. I don't know why you're in my way. I'm going past. So I'm sure he sees that with Teddy Porkchops as not like I took him out, as why in the world would he be in my way?
Why are you in my way? I'm the lead driver. Yep.
Yeah, this is my team. Like someone should have been telling you I'm coming. You should be way out of the way. Like that shouldn't even be a consideration that I would even have to attempt to pass you. You should be doing this to every other driver for me, and then let me go by. So unless there's somebody else on that team whose role is it to sort of be a driver's coach a little bit, and a sporting director seems like the kind of person that would be directing the sporting attitudes of everybody. So I put it on Kanaan there to get everybody.
I'm willing to give Kanaan a pass right now.
Okay.
Because he had an interview, I think it's Racer or whatever, he was talking about the fact that because of all this, he hasn't really been able to do his job, right? Which is exactly that. Is Pato going to listen too much? He might listen a little bit. Will Rossi listen too much? He might listen a little bit. You have to believe, and here's the deal, dude. I'm a soda pop salesman. I never played sports when I was a kid. I never did any of that, right? I would like to believe that no matter who you are or what you've achieved in your life, you should always have a certain degree of coachability. So I like to believe that, Pato O'Ward would have a certain degree of coachability, that Rossi would have a certain degree of coachability.
I feel like they don't, though, at this level, because having a coach on a team
is so good anyway. Yeah.
It's not standard practice, though. It's only the elite teams that have, for the most part, elite drivers that used to race for their organization. Otherwise, they don't, Juncos doesn't have somebody there to coach along their drivers. They rely on the veteran driver of that current team to coach the other ones. Versus, in any stick and ball sport, obviously there's coaches in all those, but even like in individual sports, I would say that might be similar to motor racing a little bit, where like golf or tennis, those guys all have coaches until the end, essentially. So no, I don't think once they get to this level, they just work with engineers and strategists on that stuff, and they're not really taking coaching.
What's interesting that you say that, and I'm going to get down a path here. Dario Franchitti apparently works in this role with Ganassi Racing.
Yeah,
right.
Correct.
What's funny to me is you always hear Palou complimenting Dixon, but all the things he's learned from Dixon. You didn't hear him say Franchitti's name once.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what he's getting there. I don't really know what Felix Rosenquist is getting from Elio Castroneves, right? Or what Tom Blomqvist is getting, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? But anyway, I'm with you there. I think I'm willing to give Tony a pass at this point, because the Malukas situation behind them, they kind of have it feels like to me like they're gonna platoon this number 6 between Pourchaire and Ilott, and maybe that'll give Tony an opportunity to get wrangle these two drivers back into some sort of shape, because they're spending way too much money to be performing at the way they are. And they threw extra money at Award for some reason, right? Like, who were they bidding against? They were bidding against themselves.
They did it,
and then now they
like
want
a few years
ago
ago
or whatever.
too. Like when I'm pretty sure it was Pato that released his own contract information. Was that 2 years ago? And then he got a raise then too. Like, go find that.
I like it,
that story. But somehow it got released, some information, and I'm pretty sure he did it himself because he was upset that Askew was going to make more money than him, and I think there's some nefarious things there too.
Rahal Letterman Lanigan, well. Graham Rahal finishes 11th after starting 7th. Could have had a better start.
Yeah.
Hot,
did you watch Did you watch his interview, post qualifying interview?
I did. I got the it was on Twitter. Somebody posted it on Twitter. Got a little F-bomb from Graham. He was pissed. He was very
pretty
pissed.
hilarious. What's so funny about that is his reaction. I get these guys are competitors and they're not whatever, but when you get out of the car and you just like slam your aero screen, like you're just trying to show off to your team that you're pissed at them, right? Like it's this, this is this big show. And then he's so bent out of shape. And was it Kevin Lee asked him, how do you think you could do starting 7th?
Yeah.
7th, right? How do you think you do? Yeah. And then he just had all these excuses about how it still wasn't going to work from 7th. And then they go talk to Palou, who started 10th, right? And the guy's all smiles.
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't work. Yeah. Didn't work the way we wanted it to, but we got a great car. We're going to be good tomorrow. Can you win from 10th? Yeah, sure, I can win from 10th. And it was like the difference in attitudes between one guy who's starting 7th and is angry at anybody who's near him.
Always. Yeah.
Versus the guy who's starting 10th and knows he could have had, like, in his mind, he knows Armstrong just qualified 6th. There's no reason I couldn't have done that. I should have a car at least that fast. Why didn't that happen? And how am I getting beat by Armstrong? Like inside he was probably livid, but sure, he presents himself so
absolutely
professionally.
But I think the difference there is that Palou has success that he is still bolstering him, right?
Yeah.
Graham hasn't had success in a while. Graham hasn't had success since they had all the wings and stuff hanging off of those cars.
Mm-hmm.
So I see Graham's frustration. Do I understand it? Not really. I don't. Yeah, I don't. I don't know. You need that much theater or whatever. I think the team is moving on. I think the team is definitely moving in the right direction. But I think what they've proven is that this team cannot support more than two cars.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You've got Lundgaard's doing well, but I think Lundgaard can sort of transcend whatever it is that team gives them. Graham needs a very specific car, something he's very, very comfortable with. That doesn't happen very often. He happened to have it this weekend, but they just can't seem to support that third car. Fittipaldi has a steering rack failure.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, dude? You've been watching IndyCar as long as I have. I couldn't tell you the last time something like that
It doesn't
happened.
seem like it, but also Stingray Rob's steering wheel supposedly fell off too. And
Oh my
when has
God.
that ever happened?
Thankfully, right? Thankfully, the father decided to take him off the track because it was sad. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It was sad. He needed to go. He needed a break. I feel bad for the kid. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm a soda pop salesman, never competed at this level. I don't know why he's in this series. He brings a check. He supports that whole program, right? Financially. It's Santino Ferrucci that pays off that program, right?
Yeah.
By results and delivering what he can deliver. But let's talk about Rosenquist a little bit. Continues his career best start. He sits 5th in the championship, 4th place at Barber. So Ryan riding a lot of confidence. He never, I think, imagined that he would be at this level right now with a brand new team, one of the smaller teams on the grid, going into Indy. This is pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I think he's doing really, really well. And kind of what's surprising to me is I obviously watch the races. We talk about it every week in depth. And if you would have asked me right at the end of the race yesterday, who's leading in the championship, Felix or Colton? Who's ahead of who? I would have said it was Felix was ahead of Colton. The Colton thing is how is that? I'm trying to do the math. How is that possible? How is he there? He's done well, but Felix has shown way more speed, way more consistency.
Yep.
He's been more level-headed, even though Colton's supposedly way more level-headed this year than previous years, and is putting more into just nice solid finishes and not getting starting out the year behind, making dumb moves. It still feels like Felix has been doing better at all of that.
Yeah.
And somehow Colton's in first place.
I know. So weird.
I'm not surprised where Felix is at. If anything, I would expect him to be a little bit higher up based on just how I feel about watching him. He's doing really well, and the team is.
Yeah.
So
how about this? Speaking of championship, Santino Ferrucci's in 10th.
Yeah, how about that? We could talk. So,
right? He's ahead of VK, Rossi, Grosjean, Ericsson, Lundgaard.
That's what, to me, the 10th in the championship is a way bigger deal than the 7th in the race.
Oh, and yeah. Totally agree.
Granted, we're only 3 races in, but to have some level of consistency and be in the top 10 is wild for them. So,
speaking of VK, I'm going to say it right here. He's going to win a race this season. Mark it down. Episode 90. What are we in? 98. Okay. Electrical gremlins killed his qualifying, but he rebounded from 27th to 17th. It's a rebound, dude. That's a rebound.
Yeah.
I believe his team did all they could to salvage the weekend. He had a drive-through penalty on lap 5 for unavoidable contact, or for avoidable contact.
Just like Joseph, he drove like a total jerk the entire race. And unlike Joseph, I don't know all the rules like he does. But when
I don't know that
Renus
Joseph knows all the rules.
He says clearly. So when Renus did his drive-through, though, he did it under yellow.
See, that's the pit, right? That's the pit box. That's Ed Carpenter and whoever's on that pit box. And they got to know better that you can't do it like that.
But then he didn't have to do another drive-through. It seemed like he got away with one there.
Oh, I have to look it up. I don't know. You have to look. Maybe they held him. I don't know. So weird.
Yeah.
My boy
based
Jack
on what
Harvey
they showed
some shade at earlier
on TV. Yeah. No, just based on what it seemed like on TV, it seemed like they never showed him do another drive-through. It just seemed like he did it under yellow. They said, here's him doing his drive-through, and then off he went, and he lost no places essentially in that drive-through. Anyway, go on. Yeah, Jack Harvey was
running too. Maybe there was a big. Hey, you threw some shade at my boy Jack earlier today. He benefited by good strategy. Some others had issues, of course, minding their manners. Jack ran in the top 10 for a little bit. He even ran in the top 5 for a little bit. Started 22nd, finished 13th. I believe Jack will contest the Indy GP, but not the 500. Here's the thing. If he can continue to take advantage of the opportunity, something good will come his way. He's fine.
He's
right?
fine. He's never going to be better than this. The fact that he qualified and like the only people he beat were rookies and maybe Stingray
right?
Robb.
God, don't make me look this up, dude.
22nd,
right?
he beat Kiffin Simpson, he beat Teddy Porkchops and Stingray Robb.
We're calling him that.
So he beat 3 people.
Yeah.
And it's the bottom of that. It's the bottom of the bottom. So
yeah. Well, at least he did
okay
that.
He did okay in the race, and I'm assuming
strategy.
There was some strategy helping there, and he seemingly sort of stayed out of trouble for the most part, except for the first lap. I guess he could have been in worse shape after that little dust up there.
And it was right around the corner from where we're sitting, so all we saw was the cloud of dust.
Oh, really?
And then we saw the cars come up afterward, and I was like, "Oh God, for real."
Is it sort of scary being there? By the way, when there's off tracks, because it seems like on TV, the spectators are very vulnerable to.
Yeah, it's other than Fittipaldi, the way he came in with that failure. He also he broke enough speed where he didn't even hit the wall. Didn't even hit that tire barrier there. It's not one of the faster corners, but I will tell you. So you say that, you kind of remind me of something. What is scary is when those cars are bouncing across the gravel, because we had a lot of that on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
When the cars are bouncing, it's incredibly loud. It's a sound I cannot even describe to you how loud it is and sort of how jarring it is. Like, you hear this and you know what I mean? You hear them kind of, coming through there. And I mean, it's the craziest sound that they make. And then they get back on the road and they take off, but it's jarring. They're not in a super high speed. I'll tell you what frightened me one time was Detroit Grand Prix. They had the jumpy trucks. I don't know what they call those things.
They're jumpy trucks, stadium super trucks.
And, yeah. Jumping, I was sitting in a grandstand on one of the straightaways where the trucks were coming up, and they were jumping, and they were probably 40, 50 yards in front of you, where they had to make a turn. And I thought, this could be really, really bad.
Yeah, because they're high enough. They're over the fences.
Yeah. Yes. It was in a way where it was like, this could go really, really bad very, very quickly. Where we were at. That was more the frightening thing. So, hey man, we gotta get ready to wrap this up. Brian, you got a beef?
Yeah. My beef of the week, I suppose, is that I don't know who I can root for anymore.
Okay.
I have I mean, I guess still Will Power, but maybe not if Tim Cindric sits around. And seemingly I'm having a hard time with a lot of these teams right now, and I don't want to. Whether it's I can never be a Ganassi fan, and I don't like Dale Coyne, and Ed Carpenter's team is just so sad to me. Magnussen is I think he's the worst. I think he's worse than Stingray Robb because he's trying to do things he can't do out there. I feel
Rasmussen.
Yes. Said Magnussen.
Rasmussen looked like he was trying to wreck all weekend.
Yeah, he was just
Yep.
I don't know if he's got some clause in his contract he has to finish in some place, and he just had to get to 17th or 15th or wherever he needed to get to.
Yeah.
To not.
He's the only car with sponsorship there, which is
Arenas
sort of head scratching to me.
I couldn't stand the way Arenas drove, and he doesn't have a sponsor, so who knows what's happening with that.
I'm a huge fan.
That Ed Carpenter team just seems really sad to me. Real quick, Ferrucci, I picked him in the year to win a race and maybe even the 500. But his political situation aside, the heat he gets for his previous time in F2, I feel like is really silly still, because No, I don't watch a lot of F2. I see highlights here and there, but I also understand that similar to like the ladder series with IndyCar, drivers essentially are paying for their spot on a team. They are not really like that close of teammates with teammates. They are very much in competition with their own teammates in most of those cases, I believe. And okay, he crashed one of his teammates, and he gets a bad rap for that.
His phone out.
And he had his phone out one time. And I never actually even saw, but apparently he had some horrible things to say, or his dad had some horrible things to say about his teammate.
Yeah.
But how is that any different than Pato O'Ward taking out his teammates any chance he has?
Right.
Like, why?
It wasn't intentional. Well,
how is it not intentional?
You're right.
What Pato's doing is intentional.
You're right. Yeah, he's coming through intentional in the way that it's reckless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's more on the line there. They're going fast. Like there's more like safety on the line too. And for some reason, Santino, I mean, was a child when that happened. He hasn't done anything that I've seen that's like been bad in IndyCar in years, but he still is like looked at as this pariah. But so no, I don't. My beef is just I'm having a hard time like rooting
finding who to root for
some of these guys right now. Like I'm rooting for Grosjean and Teddy Porkchops now a bunch. I find them interesting. Again at Long Beach, Pourchaire was the guy outside the McLaren truck that everybody was surrounding. Everybody wanted to see him and talk to him, and seemingly, like I said, I was blown away by his just sort of good interview at the end of Long Beach. I was like, it seems like a really nice guy, said the right things, has a great attitude. So like I guess all these drivers that are mostly happy to be there. Can't like Shank because they're cheaters.
You could root for Palou.
I hate Chip Ganassi like with a passion. That guy needs to be arrested. when he like wife after every win, I want to just throw up and call the police and start a Me Too on her behalf. Like, no, I have an issue with Ganassi, and Andretti cheated with Rossi's weight the other year. That wasn't as bad, I guess, but I got Andretti issues too. So these are all personal problems for me, not for.
I love it.
Not Brian's for anybody else.
Brian's beef is I need to know who I could root for, but they're all cheaters.
Someone tell me who.
Some are a little gross, but I don't know who's the least gross or who's cheating less. I love it. Good job, Brian. That's all I got, brother.
Okay.
Hey, before we go, I want to give a shout out to IndyCar1909.com and the terrific reporting that Spencer does there from week to week. Spencer's been a great friend of the show, and his work shouldn't go unnoticed. So if you've not gone to IndyCar1909.com, I tell you, please do take a look at what that is. Add it to your regular cadence of all the IndyCar stuff that you look at online every day and every week and everything. And while you're doing that, be sure to engage with us on social media. What do you think of the Penske situation and the Malukas situation? Tag our Twitter or comment on the YouTube channel. I love hearing from you. I love hearing everything you got to say. I always try to respond to everybody one way or another. And that's it. It's another episode. We'll come back to you after Indy GP, which will be Mother's Day weekend in a couple of weeks, and we'll see how some of these stories transpire between now and then. So, Brian, thanks as always. What a weird situation. We're in the same time zone for once.
Right? Almost live with each other.
Almost. Thanks, man, for chipping in. I appreciate you as always. And we'll catch you in a couple more weeks. Thanks, everybody.
All right. That's good. Bye, guys.